They told me I was invisible. That's what my manager Claire said in the meeting, not realizing her mic was on. My face burned as the whole department heard her laugh. Don't worry, she won't say a word. She's like furniture, always there, but never important. I sat frozen in my seat, plain cardigan and jeans making me blend into the background. She stole my slides, my work, my credit, and everyone laughed along. My chest tightened, but I didn't speak. Instead, something inside me hardened. If they wanted me invisible, I'd use it. What Claire didn't know was that buried in the merger contract was a clause I had written months ago, one line requiring all original contributors' approval before final signatures could happen. They never read it. They thought I was nothing. But I held the key, and one move could bring their empire down. The next day, I watched Claire parade into the office in her sharp suit, heels clicking, acting like she owned the floor. She didn't notice me, plain sweater and sneakers, notebook in hand, slipping by like a shadow. She called me dead weight in front of a client once, smiling like it was a joke. Everyone laughed then, too. But they didn't know I was the one stitching every deal together, drafting every clause, tracking every cent. That invisibility was my weapon. And while Claire was too busy flirting with executives and practicing speeches, I was quietly copying files, pulling records, piecing together the truth. The merger they bragged about built on my research, my numbers, my strategy. Without me, it was nothing but hollow promises. They had no idea that one quiet, disposable woman held the power to stop it all with a single refusal. Claire loved attention. She threw her head back when she laughed, made a show of tossing her hair, and whispered about promotions that were already hers. I watched from the sidelines, quiet as ever, taking notes in my worn-out notebook. Nobody noticed I was the one logging every call, filing every contract. They called me thorough when they remembered my name at all, but to them, I was background noise. Claire even joked once. She could vanish and no one would miss her. She didn't realize that I had already secured every draft, every timestamp, every email, proving whose work it really was. And when the CFO congratulated her on her flawless diligence, my stomach turned. But I also smiled, because the higher she climbed on my work, the harder her fall would be. And I was patient. The turning point came when Claire shoved the final merger packet onto my desk. "Make it clean, don't screw it up," she snapped, walking away like I was her assistant. My fingers traced the edges of the binder. Inside were weeks of my work, research I had done alone, numbers I had calculated at midnight. She wanted me to erase my name completely. I could have cried, but instead I flipped to the clause I had written months ago. Contributor approval required prior to execution. My quiet insurance policy. Nobody noticed when I slipped a copy of that page into my folder. Nobody noticed when I sent myself a backup email. To Claire, I was still invisible. That invisibility meant freedom. It meant time. And soon, it would mean control. When the board meeting came, Claire strode in with perfect lipstick and a rehearsed speech. I sat at the corner, cardigan sleeves pulled over my hands, barely acknowledged. "This is the moment our company evolves," she declared, presenting my slides like they were hers. Applause filled the room. No one looked my way. But then the lawyers pulled out the contracts. I leaned forward, heart pounding. "There's a missing signature," one of them said. The room went silent. Claire laughed nervously, waving it off. "It's just a formality." But the lawyer shook his head. "No, it's required. Contributor approval." Everyone turned. Their eyes landed on me for the first time. Claire's smile cracked. I felt the weight of the entire room pressing down on me. Every executive, every director, staring like they had never seen me before. My voice almost failed me, but then I remembered every late night, every cruel word, every time Claire called me disposable. "Yes," I said, steady this time, "that's my clause, my work." The air cracked with tension. Claire's eyes went wide, then sharp, like knives. She's exaggerating. She only organized files. But the CFO leaned forward, flipping through the documents. My initials appeared, page after page. Proof. Claire's face drained of color. She tried to argue, but her words sounded hollow now. For the first time, silence worked in my favor. I had always been invisible, but in that moment, all eyes were locked on me. The CEO cleared his throat. Why didn't I know about this? His voice cut through the room. Claire stammered something about teamwork, about delegation, but nobody bought it. I sat still, cardigan sleeves still covering my wrists, the quiet girl at the edge of the table. Only now, I wasn't background. The CEO's gaze shifted to me. Is this true? He asked. My heart thundered, but I nodded. Every line, every projection, every safeguard, you're looking at mine. The board members exchanged glances. One muttered, unbelievable. Claire's hands trembled as she tried to gather the papers, as if she could stuff the truth back into silence. But silence was mine now, not hers. The unraveling was brutal. Questions flew like arrows. Who drafted the merger terms? Who ensured compliance? Who predicted the risks? Each time, the answer was me. Claire's rehearsed smile collapsed into panic. She's lying, she shouted finally, voice cracking. But the lawyer slid the original drafts across the table, complete with metadata and timestamps. My name glowed in every corner. Claire's protests shrank into whispers. The CEO leaned back, eyes fixed on her. You stole her work. Claire shook her head wildly, but no one listened. And in that silence, I discovered something new, a power I had never felt before, the power of being seen. They dismissed Claire from the room. She stormed out, heels clicking like gunshots. For a moment, I almost pitied her. Almost. But then the CEO turned back to me. We owe you an apology, he said, words I never thought I'd hear. Applause followed, cautious but growing. My chest tightened. I wanted to disappear again, but instead I held their gaze. I wasn't invisible, I whispered. You just refused to look. The CFO nodded gravely. Not anymore. My binder of notes sat on the table, plain and worn, but suddenly it looked like a weapon, a crown, a key. And I realized I wasn't done yet. That night, Claire sent me a text. You'll regret this. I stared at the glowing screen, lips curling into a smile. For years, I had swallowed her words like poison. Now, I finally had the antidote. I drafted an email attaching proof of every stolen report, every manipulated handoff, every lie. I didn't send it, yet. Instead, I saved it, like a blade waiting in the dark. If Claire thought I would crawl back into silence, she hadn't learned a thing. I was quiet, yes, but quiet didn't mean weak. Quiet meant watching. Quiet meant waiting. And my patience wasn't done cutting her down. The next day, Claire tried to walk into the office like nothing had happened, her chin high, her voice sharp. But whispers followed her like shadows. People had seen the cracks, and cracks only spread. I kept my head low, the same cardigan, the same round face no one noticed before. But now every nod, every glance carried weight. I had proof sitting on my laptop, a digital arsenal. One wrong move from her, and I'd unleash it. For once, she was the one frozen in her seat, smiling too wide, speaking too fast. She knew it. I held the silence she used to weaponize against me. By Friday, the CEO called me in. I thought it might be another dismissal, another humiliation. But instead, he asked me to step into Claire's role temporarily. You already do the work, he said simply. My heart skipped, but I nodded. Claire's office smelled of perfume and desperation. I slid into her chair, not with arrogance, but with a quiet steadiness. Her nameplate still sat on the desk. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. Everyone already knew whose hands held the real power now. Still, I kept the files ready, just in case Claire tried one last desperate move. She did. Monday morning, she cornered me by the elevators. Her smile was too bright, her voice too sweet. "We don't have to fight," she whispered. "Delete the files, and I'll make sure you keep your little promotion." I almost laughed. For years, she'd spoken to me like I was disposable, like my worth ended at the copier. Now she was begging. I leaned closer. "I don't want your approval, Claire. I want the truth out there." Her eyes flickered with rage. She muttered something about ruining me, but her threats bounced off this time. I wasn't her shadow anymore. I was her storm. That afternoon, I sent the email. Every stolen draft, every timestamp, every trace of her plagiarism. Not just to the CEO, but to the board, the auditors, and HR. By evening, Claire was escorted out of the building, her protests echoing down the hall. I sat at her desk, cardigan sleeves pulled tight, the quiet girl who no one thought would last. My hands trembled, but not with fear. This was release. Years of silence breaking in one steady stream of truth. Claire had called me invisible, but now she was the one erased. Weeks later, I still sit in her chair. Not because I chased power, but because I earned it. Colleagues approach me with a new kind of respect. Not loud, not flashy, but real. Sometimes I remember Claire's words, "You're disposable." They echo faintly, but they don't sting anymore. They remind me of the moment I turned silence into fire. Revenge wasn't loud, it wasn't cruel. It was truth, steady and undeniable. And the truth destroyed her far better than I ever could. For once, I wasn't invisible. For once, I was the story no one could erase.